Hi boys and girls, we're going to look at Module 4, Lesson 30, which is dividing decimal dividends by non-unit decimal divisors. Again, this first number here is our dividend, and the divisor is doing the work. It's going to see how many tenths it can make out of 2. So we know that any division expression can be rewritten as a fraction. So I'm actually going to take this 2 divided by a tenth, and I'm going to show it as a fraction. Okay, now this looks kind of funny, right? Because we have in the denominator a decimal point. It's different, but it's actually perfectly acceptable. But we can remove this decimal point by renaming the fraction so that the denominator is a whole number instead. So we know that multiplying it by a fraction that's equal to 1 will give us an equivalent fraction. All right, so I'm going to multiply this by 10 over 10, okay, in order to get rid of my decimal point. I know that 10 over 10 is really equivalent to 1 whole, right? 10 tenths. Anything, we know the identity property, anything times 1 is itself. So if I multiply 2 and 1/10 by something that's equal to 1, I'm going to get an equivalent fraction. So looking at this, 2 times 10 is going to give me 20. Okay, and 1/10 times 10 is going to give me 1. I know that 20 divided by 1 is 20, so that's my answer. All right, let's try the second one. This time it's 2 divided by 2/10. Again, I'm going to show it as a fraction. Again, I want to make the denominator a whole number. Okay, in order to do that, I need to times it by 10 so I can get rid of this decimal point. Now, if I'm going to times it by 10, I have to do whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. But the good news is that I can times both by 10 tenths because that is the same thing as 1, right? So 2 times 10 is going to give me 20. And, oops, that's supposed to be an equal sign. And 2/10 times 10 is going to give me 2. So 20 divided by 2 is 10. And there's my answer. All right, this next problem is slightly different because now both our dividend and our divisor have a decimal point in it. Okay, so I'm going to set it up once again as a fraction. Okay, it just makes it easier to see. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I want to get rid of those decimal points. So since both of these numbers are in the tenths place, I know if I multiply them both by 10, I can get rid of that decimal point. And I know that 10 tenths is the same thing as 1. Anything times 1 is itself, so it's equivalent. 2 and 4/10 times 10 is 24. 2/10 times 10 is 2. So my answer is going to be 12. Okay, one more we're going to try on this page. 2 and 4/10 divided by 4/10. Again, I put my dividend as my numerator, my divisor, my denominator. Okay, I look at this and both are in the tenths place. I want to get rid of them. Okay, 10 over 10 is the same thing as 1. So I'm not going to worry as long as I'm doing the same thing to my numerator as I'm doing to my denominator. Okay, 2/4 times 10 is 24. 4/10 times 10 is 4. Okay, I know 24, if I'm dividing it by 4, is going to give me 6. And there's my answer. Okay, so let's try next slide. We're just going to do one more problem together, and then you're going to get to try the next two on your own. Okay, so these are slightly different because now our divisor is going into the hundredths place. And our dividend here is in the tenths. So once again, I'm going to set it up as a fraction. Okay. And I'm going to look at this carefully because if I want to get rid of my decimal point here, I'm going to have to multiply it by 100 because I'm in the hundredths place. Now, since my rule is that whatever I do to the, to the denominator or to the numerator has to be the same because I'm timesing it, again, by 1. Even though this is in the tens place, if I were going to make this 10 to get rid of the decimal point, well, now I'm no longer, right? I'm no longer timesing it by a number equivalent to 1. That's not going to work, okay? So I'm going to have to make this 100, okay? Because 100 hundredths is the same exact thing as 1. So now, 1 6/10 times 100 is going to be 160. Okay. And then 4 hundredths times 100 is 4. Okay. So now I can do some simple division. I know 16 divided by 4 is 4, but it's 160, so it's going to give me 40. Okay. So now, again, I'll get you started on the next one, but I'm going to ask you to try it on your own. We have 1 6/8 divided by 4 hundredths. Okay, so what can we times this by? A number that's going to be a fraction equivalent to 1, where I can get rid of my decimal points in this fraction. And again, our last one is 1 68 hundredths divided by 12 hundredths. Again, you need to think about what am I going to times this by, right? So that a number, it has to be a fraction equivalent to 1. So I'm going to times it by a fraction equivalent to 1, where I'm going to get rid of my decimal points. Okay, so what would you have to do? And try and finish these last, like I said, try and finish these last two on your flipped classroom worksheet. Okay, then you'll have some other independent practice to do to get you prepared for tomorrow. Make sure if you have any questions, you come in prepared with any questions, and let me know how it went for you. Good luck tonight.